Okay, so jumping right into it. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe. Let's see. I don't think this is okay. Okay, great. So here's just a brief overview of the chapter. So it's assumed by a lot of people in at least my field of animal ethics that the implementation of advanced digital precision livestock farming technologies, which will be abbreviated as PLF for the rest of the presentation, that these technologies will improve welfare for factory farmed animals. However, I want to consider, especially with the topic of this conference, implementation of AI risks and opportunities. I'm going to be like less of an opportunity presenter like the last one and more of a risks person. So we're going to look at what sort of risks are involved in applying these technologies in the industrial farming climate as it is today. And I say that novel PLF systems are likely to ensure that multifold future animals will suffer and be slaughtered for the meat industry, because by design, these tools will ultimately increase animal production density and prolong the practice of intensive animal farming. And we'll explore why next. But first, we'll talk about AI in the animal agriculture industry. So the demand for automation in the livestock industry is increasing significantly due to rising human populations and demand for meat, climate and sustainability concerns, and rapid development of increasingly sophisticated and accessible digital technologies. And the global market for PLF is projected to expand at an annual rate of 10.2%, reaching a value of $11.2 billion by 2028. So what do PLF tools really do? So it's basically PLF refers generally to the application of advanced technologies designed to extract and interpret tremendous amounts of animal data in real time to inform decisions about farm animals' health, housing, reproduction, and nutrition. So the tools include biosensors that capture biological information from animals like vocalizations and movements, algorithms for processing the information, and user interfaces that allow farm workers to make sense of these data. And the uses are streamlining the monitoring of large numbers of animals, which are processed through the animal in the animal farming industry, reduce potential stress from repeated handling by humans, prevent disease outbreaks, and monitor animals at an individual level to better understand their specific needs. This all sounds wonderful. So yeah, the benefit of PLF technologies is that they can identify and predict deviations or abnormalities that indicate possible disease outbreaks, injuries, or unsafe climate conditions for the animals. And this is very helpful in these sorts of stock intensive, yes. So animals can be identified early and receive timely medical treatment. And this is especially helpful in very densely packed farming operations where there will be like 300 pigs, for example, per stock person. And they have to be able to evaluate the health of all of these animals at once, which can be streamlined by the use of technology. Okay, cool, we've got 10 minutes. Okay, where did I put the little clicker? Ugh. Okay, and my favorite example, and this was in 2015, so this is like, seems old in terms of the movement of technology right now, but it's one of my favorite examples of chicken vocalizations and Clostridium perfringens, which Clostridium perfringens is a bacterium that is actually rampant in the poultry industry and can cause billions of dollars of damage, and it causes it's a disease lacking observable indicators in the infected birds, so it's often only discovered after the animals die. So this experiment took acoustic information from broiler chicken vocalizations and used the data, actually had the data analyzed by a neural network pattern recognition tool, yes, to that's okay. some notes here and then, oh, great, thank you. Is it working now? Oh, now there's a screen. I've got so many screens now. Okay, great. So the experiment took place with an infected group of chickens, and a healthy control group recorded daily with a microphone and a computer. And the experimenters applied an artificial neural network algorithm to differentiate the healthy chickens from unhealthy ones by recognizing patterns in their vocalizations. And this succeeded in discriminating between infected and healthy chickens with 66.6% accuracy on the second day after infection. And by day 8 following the infection, the neural network identified unhealthy individuals with 100% accuracy. That's a big deal when humans can't identify them ever until they're dead, which takes about 9 to 11 days. So it gets pretty close. So proponents in philosophy have said that these technologies will provide significant benefits for animals living on farms, and they have the potential to provide better care for animals than humans can. Therefore, it's led certain philosophers like Walter Veit at the AI for Animals conference in 2023 to state that animal farms have an obligation, a moral obligation to implement these AI-powered PLF technologies because of the potential they have to radically improve farm animal welfare. Let's see, so many buttons. So I wanted to question this thesis. And so I was taking into consideration future animals, the future animals that would be on these factory farms, on these smart farms. So and I figured, if we think about every year, approximately 90 billion fishes, 70 billion chickens, 300 million cows, a billion sheep and goats, 3 billion ducks, and 1.5 billion pigs are raised and killed for food. We have to consider how the practice of industrial farming will affect these future animals. And given the enormous population of animals currently being farmed for food every year and the extent to which these animals are harmed by their exploitation, slaughter, and confinement, allowing the practice of industrial farming to expand and persist even slightly more than it otherwise would have can generate tremendous suffering for potentially hundreds of billions of sentient individuals. So therefore, I think it's critical to ensure that the animal suffering offset by successful PLF systems in the near future should be considered next to whether or not there will be worse long-term aggregate suffering of future animals harmed by being in the factory farming system. Will the system improve overall for most animals, or will it just perpetuate the same practices that are harming them now, just to a bigger extent, a more efficient, a streamlined extent? And so I think that this is actually a likely outcome, the negative outcome. And I'm taking this from like a long-termist point of view. So quickly, long-termism is a utilitarian philosophy, according to which we must pursue good outcomes, not just for sentient beings who currently exist, but for beings in the distant future. Suffering that's going to occur tomorrow counts just as much as suffering that will occur 100 years from now. And sometimes the overwhelming number of individuals who could be harmed in the future by an action can sometimes take precedent over the benefits an action could provide more immediately when we weigh out a long-term sort of view of the outcomes of a certain practice. Wrong button, so many buttons. So I think that the negative outcome, where animals are maybe confined worse or to a greater extent, is likely in the current climate of the industrial animal agriculture industry, because it's a particularly concentrated market. And so I'm focusing on this phenomenon called a lock-in. And in concentrated markets, like the meat industry, the interests of major corporations become inherent to the methods and tools used in production, and new technologies can have profoundly consequential effects on the production system that become difficult to alter once they're in place. And a lock-in in the agricultural world in agricultural practices or tools is self-reinforcing, it's resistant to future modification, and ultimately produces a very different outcome than what would have occurred had the practices or tools not been changed or implemented in the first place. So, for example, when farmers invest in adopting new technologies to secure competitive advantage, they become increasingly dependent on a handful of major agribusiness enterprises and the technological products they supply, limiting the adoption of alternative practices and expanding the power of a few dominant corporations. And my example that I draw from is this. We kind of saw this happen before with the proliferation of Roundup Ready seeds, the expansion of glyphosate as the most common herbicide in agriculture. So starting in the 1970s, gene modification technologies allowed biotechnology companies to engineer enhanced crop seeds designed to be resistant to the herbicide glyphosate. And initially, glyphosate was a marginal herbicide. However, the development of these, yes, oh, 4 minutes. Okay, great. These crops led to its widespread adoption. And now it's the most widely used herbicide and led to the inextricable linking of the seeds and agrochemicals businesses, which were once distinct industries. And today, nearly all major crops in the US use glyphosate-resistant seeds, so like cotton, soy, corn. And these are largely controlled by just 2 companies. And then let's see, okay. So here's where it comes back around to, let's think about how this relates to the example of PLF tools. So if we think about technological lock-ins, along with other concomitant lock-in events, this can have detrimental consequences for farm workers and farm animals because the firms, the major meat companies, of which there are about 4 in the pork industry specifically that I've looked into, this can have detrimental consequences because these firms typically invest in innovation pathways and policy endorsements that serve their own productivist agendas surrounding the technologies, and focus on high-tech solutions alone when considering the issue of animal welfare on factory farms suits the powerful actors from agribusiness and the ag tech industry, and it contributes to maintaining the status quo by diverting attention and funding away from initiatives that are attempting to transform agriculture more fundamentally towards less corporate domination and more biological and social diversity. And this is just, I think, would be part of hang on, I went to the wrong page. Okay. Because as PLF tools become the standard, smaller farms or those with more humane practices may struggle to compete, reinforcing the dominance of large-scale intensive systems. For example, smaller farms that rely on pasture-based systems may not be able to utilize PLF technologies designed for high-density environments, putting them at a competitive disadvantage. This could further marginalize small and mid-sized farms that cannot afford to adopt these expensive, capital-intensive tools. As companies like Microsoft and major agribusiness firms invest in these technologies, alternative, welfare-focused farming methods may be sidelined. So summary. So proponents of PLF claim that these AI tools will improve animal welfare, but this claim is based on a perspective that overlooks the broader context of the animal farming industry in which those technologies would operate. A complex of cultural, commercial, and political interests contribute to the severe animal suffering on intensive farms. And because PLF is both the product and the tool of these manifold interests, there are strong reasons to be cautious, particularly from this long-termist standpoint. And there's my alarm. Okay, so I'll wrap it up. Go, turn it off. Okay. So yeah, overall, I'll just say digital technologies, although they're often perceived as valuable, cutting edge, fascinating, effective, we must crucially examine how these technologies operate in the context of intricate socioeconomic environments to ensure that the fantasy of these technological solutions does not overshadow the dynamic realities that perpetuate poor welfare on animal farms. Technologies do not develop in a value vacuum. They are designed according to specific interests of concrete actors within a dynamic political and economic environment. And thank you. I'll end it there. And there's a link to my sources. Great. Do I keep this? Oh.
Yeah, thank you so much for the presentation. Do anyone have any question?
Great presentation. I think what you're talking about is more, I think, to my understanding, is the precision agriculture in some ways, right?
Yeah.
And I know now some of the smallhold farmers or those like smallhold ranchers are also thinking about the precision agriculture, how that can actually help them. So do you think, although those technology are designed with the intention for the large corporations, but can actually help the smallhold agriculture or the farmers to benefit them in a way that can bring some of the benefits to them as well?
I love this question. This is going in the paper because that is something that I didn't talk about in the paper. Because from what I understand, you're saying that smaller farms could be enhanced and maybe even made even more competitive in the large scale farming world if their practices are enhanced by these technologies. And I think that's a really good consideration. I would say that perhaps that to defend my thesis, perhaps, a small farm could benefit and improve its productivity with precision livestock farming technologies. But I'm just uncertain with, I guess I wish I had numbers for this, how much that would be offset by the amount of productivity enhancement that would occur for the large scale industrial farms. Because maybe, there would be smaller farms that could benefit. Maybe the thing I said about like them being outcompeted isn't so accurate. I think that still doesn't address the problem of how the expansion or the increased efficiency in the animal farming industry would produce greater harms in the end.
All right, thank you.
Cool, thank you so much. Thank you.